And the Moped Outlaws ride again.
Yay!
Here we are. What a great guest Steve turns out to be. One of the things we didn't tell him, and I'm telling you guys now, I didn't even tell Greg this, was I was kind of in a funk when I started the episode today. And I'm definitely not in that mood anymore. I've shifted my way of being right now. And so I expect the same for you folks. Like you'll learn some things and you'll hear some sad stories and some positive stories, and you'll get some good advice. And Steve's up to some great stuff. So definitely check it out. And of course, there's that magic question at the end. So stick around and find out about what, Steve thinks about that special subject that we ask everyone. And in fact, right now, if you send us an email and with what that question is, we promise to write back.
Yeah. Maybe
the address is the hosts at mopedoutlaws.com. The hosts at mopedoutlaws.com. Anything you want to add, Greg?
Please subscribe and leave a review. It helps us out a lot. Drink Adrenochrome Cola, support Blast, support Compton
Cowboys.
Cowboys, and enjoy the ride.
Sis, hallo?
Blijven.
Dus je zeker wegen dem.
Yo, je iets niet, joh.
Two outlaws on the lam, taking the back roads through America.
You can't drink enough coffee for this show.
And now it's time for Monday Madness with the Moped Outlaws, Greg and Mark.
And we're live with another episode of Moped Outlaws, and today we're riding with Steve Gamlin, who is, amongst other things, the leader of vision boards. So, Steve, just to dive into that, do you have personal experience of success with a vision board?
Absolutely. I've been making them part of my life for the past 20 years since I crashed and burned my entire existence around age 35, and have used them to map out the version of my life that I wanted to enjoy. And I've hit health goals. I've hit business goals. I've hit goals that I had since I was 11 years old. Wow. And also created the best version of myself and discovered the love of my life. And we enjoyed a 17.5-year relationship. Everything that I wanted in that relationship, got exactly what I was after, with a lot of work and a lot of effort. And none of it is genies and magic lamps like some people in my industry would like you to believe.
All right, so let me ask you then the practical elements. So what I hear you saying is you get 20 magazines, you cut out a picture of a beautiful woman, you cut out a picture of a sunset beach, you cut out a coupe, on a highway with your lover. And that alone isn't bringing that into your life. So
no, I mean, people find those pictures all the time and they slap them on a board. But the question I always ask people is, it's not just what you want to get, but who you want to become in the process. And that's a big part that a lot of people leave out. They do all the trinkets and treasures. And what I see a lot of times is what I call the vision board starter kit. Lamborghini, yacht, private jet, mansion, big honking gold watch, a helicopter, and a bank vault full of gold bars and piles of cash. And they go, dude, I made a vision board. I'm like, you wrote a letter to Santa Claus. Because not that there's anything wrong with any of those things, but come on, dude, tell me who you want to become. And not just with material things. I mean, there's 8 areas of life that I work with my clients, and money's only one of them.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
It's a fascinating subject because the idea of pre-programming our brain to actually focus on and filter out anything but what it is that we have as our vision for ourselves, and then tie that into our actions, is a massively powerful way to create in the world. And you've clearly created a lot. Like you created a radio career, some comedy. You spent a lot of time on the road, didn't you?
Here in New England, yeah. I didn't go national or anything like that because I had a lot of ties here at home and family who unfortunately were not in the best of health. So I didn't travel that far from home, but I enjoyed 7 years of comedy and 10 years on the radio. Worked 15 years worth of hours. and burnt myself into the ground, and that caused the self-destruction in my early 30s. But all of that, all those ashes that I fell back into led to what I've been able to enjoy the past 20 years when I dialed back in on what I really wanted.
So what's your vision for yourself now include? What are you creating now and looking forward? I mean, obviously the motivational firewood guy is something we'll talk about, but it's spring. It's a great time to be sort of in the renewal process. What are you envisioning for yourself right now?
What I'm working on most right now is the pandemic a few years ago wiped out both of my businesses because they were event-based. I was enjoyed life as a speaker and also owned a DJ company for 28 and a half years. And the pandemic wiped them both out. So it's been the DJ company. I just honored my last gigs and I just walked away from it. But the speaking, I've been virtual for the past few years. Life situations recently, unfortunately, my wife passed away in December. And I will be including my grief journey in my business in the future. So I'm getting back on live stages. I'm working with my business mentor, with her entire development team. We're building a brand new website. We are rebranding everything. So right now, this year, the number one thing is getting back out there speaking and also speaking at grief conferences because, and here's the vision and the intention, there's going to be someone in that audience, probably sitting way in the back, in the shadows, not in the light, who is hurting so bad they want to run out of that room and maybe make a decision that could impact their life in a very negative way. My mission as a speaker, my intention is to be that one speaker who keeps them in their seat long enough to get a shred of hope and to not run off and make a rash decision and to seek help with their grief. So it's a bit of a serious thing, but that is part of my vision for this year. That is the biggest part, is to not only get through this myself with all the help of people I've reached out to, but to also help other people on their journey. See, it's not all just Lamborghinis, yachts, and mansions. That is the next best version of me, is somebody who continues to help others, not just with visualization and the straight up positivity, but in the grief journey as well.
May I ask, in your grief journey, this woman was the embodiment of your vision of a romantic relationship, the unicorn in essence.
Absolutely.
So in your grief journey, did you have those moments of hopelessness and darkness where there really seemed no reason to take another step?
Not really, because our love was so deep. And a couple of years ago, it was in January, about 3 years ago, she came to me and just gave me a great big hug and put her head on my chest and looked up and asked, "Honey, can I ask you a big favor?" And I said, "Sure." And she said, "Can this be the year that you get really famous again so that I can find a less stressful job?" Essentially what she did, she had heart disease. We didn't know how bad it was. She worked herself to death. And she was 56 when she passed. And for the past 18 months, she had struggled with menopause side effects, which just racked her health. She had not gotten a solid night's sleep in a year and a half. And so I'm honoring the promise I made to her to get myself back out there, to honor her, to share our story, which is such a love story. We literally brought a fairy tale to life. Our story of how we reconnected in June of 2007 got me on Oprah's radio network 4 times around 2010 and 2011. So I'm honoring our story, not feeling as though I needed to check off this earth. I just need to check off a promise I made to my baby.
That's awesome. That's beautiful.
Yeah. And the impact that you carry as you create that celebrity or that awareness of people about your spirit, about what it is you're bringing, it's embodied in a lot of the work that we saw in what you provided us as far as the preparatory materials go. And just the name, the motivational firewood guy, tells you that you're lighting the fire of possibilities under people. But it sounds like you're also in this moment the phoenix rising from the ashes of your own life. And in terms of speaking and incorporating this new level of tragedy in your life and then turning that into something, it doesn't sound like you fully integrated and come up with what that particular presentation is going to be. But can you give a little bit of insight into what the key touchstones are for you right now that are bringing you from tragedy to hope?
Yeah, actually, it does already have a name, and I applied for a TEDx talk just the other day. So I won't find out for a couple of more weeks if I get it. But it's called Heartbreak, Healing, and Humor: the three biggest lessons I learned from losing my Tina.
Wow.
And there's actually a lot of humor in this journey, and that's something I need to bring to everything. I mean, she has shown up. When she passed away, we were over in England. We had just arrived for a week-long vacation. She passed 24 hours after we got there. I mean, shattered, shaking, and alone for the first 5 days until my sister flew over to help me out.
Wow.
All of this was already formulating in my head, as numb as I was and as in shock. And she showed up for me there in a dream on the 9th night. And she has shown up several times here back at our house in New Hampshire. And she's actually brought some humor into this whole healing journey, with some moments that have happened that are going to be shared on stage. So I could never get up on stage and just give a sad, depressed tale of woe. But I'm finding, I mean, she'd bought a whole bunch of Christmas gifts before we left. The dining room table was covered because this was early December. And while we were gone, a whole bunch more get delivered. And I returned as many as I could to get the money off her credit cards. But I had these 2 gifts, and I had an idea of who she had bought it for. But I just took the easy way out, and I said, well, there's 2. I'll just give one to each of the neighbors. And as soon as I said that, as soon as I thought that out loud, the song that was playing on Alexa at that moment, it just stopped dead in the middle of the song. It never done that before. So as soon as I say, well, I'll just give it to this person, the song stops, and I look up and go, okay. I'll give it to the person that I'm pretty sure, 99% sure that she had chosen
intended it to. All right, so the song break was letting you know wrong choice. Go the full distance. She's
made lights flicker. One night a few weeks ago, I was baking. My family and I have a nonprofit called Beach Bum Philanthropy, and Tina was one of the founding members of it back in December of 2012. And I was baking a whole bunch of stuff for a homeless shelter. Well, I accidentally used some outdated by about 2 years macadamias, and I taste test everything before I bring it anywhere. I got so violently ill with salmonella. I was up all night sick. My abs for 3 days felt like I'd done 1,000 sit-ups. But all that night, I kept hearing a rush of air in our bedroom while I was sleeping, and I would wake up, and that was exactly the time I had to go into the bathroom to be sick. But I kept hearing it every time as though she was there. I mean, there was no other explanation for this whoosh of air. It wasn't the heater. It wasn't anything else. But there's just moments like that where she's here. And some of them are actually kind of funny when she does it, like making the music stop or flickering the lights when I'm, talking about something and she's trying to get my attention to shift me to something more positive.
My father once said that he would hear like a tone in his ears. I think we've all heard it before. And for him, that was the universal dial tone that someone was trying to get through. And he would just take a moment and, listen to. So have these experiences transformed your own knowledge and blood and bone of this element of the existence of us beyond our physical realm?
Yeah. Oh, I believed in that right along anyway. I mean, I've had 5 people in my lifetime pass away in my arms, essentially. Like I was there for their passing. Tina was the only one that was unexpected, but I've been with 5 people and I believed it right along. And my dad passed away 6.5 years ago. And even now, if I go to his old house, he was a carpenter, into his workshop, and if I'm looking for a tool and I can't find it, I'll just stop and go, all right, bud, where'd you leave it? And we have written down 15 examples of things that we've all of a sudden been able to locate.
That's awesome.
When I had no idea at all where they were or where he had left them all those years ago. And 15 of them that we have found, including most recently a rivet gun that I hadn't seen in 20 years. I just went down in there. All right, bud, where'd you leave the rivet gun? I need it. And I just stopped, listened, and walked right over to the one drawer in a 2-stack of drawers tool chest, opened the drawer, and there it was.
That's brilliant.
So as you look at this grief to healing to humor, or used the H word.
Heartbreak, healing, and humor.
Heartbreak. Yeah. How do you look at humor? Humor is a choice, right? Like there's a point at which you have to choose to transmute this energetic, and that's the part of the healing process, right? So humor is playing a role in the healing process for you, right?
Absolutely, 100%.
So does that then make it sort of necessary for there to be some down moments in the next presentation you give, because that brings people to a higher state as a result of having gone into the depths with you? Like in the drama symbols, we see the happy face and the sad face, and they're both necessary for the gravitas of the situation, for the healing to actually occur. And are you willing to take people into that deeper, darker sort of sad place and then show them the way out? Is that kind of the intention?
Yeah, 100%. You take them on a journey with you, and you go up, down, and everything in between. And one thing I learned early on in my speaking, this was very early on, never leave an audience sad. Always bring them somewhere better. Bring them back to at least level ground before you go elsewhere. And I had a story of the reason I got into radio is I had a friend who believed in me when I didn't back in spring of 1992. I was 24 years old. And he asked me why I never followed my dream of being on the radio. And broken, depressed, living on my grandfather's couch, going nowhere, doing nothing with a college degree except paying off the loans. I just took his belief in me when I didn't have any, and I went and followed my dream of being on the radio, got my first internship, not even a job, an internship. And he passed away 3 weeks later.
Wow.
And I shared that story on stage, or early on, I shared that story on stage saying, when somebody else believes in you, listen to them. Yeah. And I would just stop. I said, he died I was holding on to him along with his family members when he passed. And then I just turned and went on to the next thing. And I turned back around and everybody's crying. And I went, oh, crap. What did I do? And I talked to my speaking coach at the time, and he shakes his head. He goes, so wait a second. The last thing you said about him was he died. I go, yeah. He goes, and then what'd you do? I said, I went on to something else. He goes, don't ever leave anyone sad. So what I found was one of the last photos taken of him and I when he was healthy, spring of 92. And I put that up on the screen. And I said, now there are three things I miss about this photograph. Obviously, I miss my friend. I miss how simple life was when I was 24 years old. And then I look at the picture and I look back. I said, but I think what I miss the most is the ability to wear horizontally striped clothing and still be considered attractive. And it brings them back. And then, kind of like you said, I get to go on to the, back upward to a happier, more humorous thing, and then back down into the depth of what I've been feeling and going through, and then back up again. So it's a series of waves, but you got to be real careful and responsible with where you take people.
So tell us a little bit about what you loved about radio and what you hated about it.
Yeah. What I loved the most about it was the last 4 years I was in radio, 98 to 02. It was at a small radio group up in the Lakes region of New Hampshire. So we weren't owned by a huge company. We actually had an off-site owner who didn't really pay attention to us. And my boss, myself, and one other person who came from New Hampshire's biggest rock station up to there, we basically built from nothing a classic rock station that was on par with anything else in New England.
Nice.
And that was the best. The creative license that our boss gave us without telling the owner we were actually doing it, it started to make money. And then the owner came up, walked down the hall and said, why is there somebody in the big 1015 studio? And somebody not knowing goes, oh, that's Ron, our afternoon guy. And he goes, we have an afternoon guy. He had it just on satellite. We took it off satellite and brought it live. And he listened for 2 days, and he went and told my boss, he goes, I never gave you permission to do that, but you've built a hell of a radio station.
Wow.
So that's what I love the most. What I hated the most about it was anytime a radio station got sold, my morning show got fired.
Yeah.
Happened twice. And basically one time they just said, this is your last show. Don't be rude. And then the second time they said, that was your last show. Pack your crap and get out.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been through this with family members and as a fan. A couple of the great radio stations in the San Francisco Bay Area where Greg and I live, particularly rock stations, went through a similar thing where there was a decision about the bandwidth and the frequency and the marketing of the audience of that, the reach basically, that drove a series of decisions that were really not about what radio really means to people. And I'm wondering if you could say a little bit about what radio really means to an audience, especially when you develop that relationship.
Especially in this day and age.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really what we created up in the Lakes region of New Hampshire, was a station that felt like they were your friends on the air.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about the money. People could actually call on a telephone and get a real person to answer and play their song and have a conversation. And we really made ourselves part of the community. In our first full year on the air, we actually took second place in the whole state of New Hampshire. I know we're not big, for Station of the Year, because of not only the programming we created, but all the things we did in the community to embrace our listening audience. It was great because you felt like you belonged to the station, and we felt like the listeners belonged to us and we were responsible for them. So we just did our best every day. That's gone now, big time.
Yeah. In essence, it is creating a family. Here in San Francisco, there's a morning show that's been on for a couple of decades. And not only are they like family to me, I listen, there's the comfort of the voice familiarity, but also because of Facebook, there's a group, and online there's like interaction with, what they did today, or I didn't like that, or and it really is a feeling of belonging and community created.
Yeah.
And for me, that environment.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, for me, it started now, 33 years ago, and every once in a while, I'll be somewhere in public and somebody yell out, "Oh my God, Ramblin'!" Because my nickname on the morning show was the Ramblin' Gamblin' Man, because my last name's Gamblin', and the Bob Seger song, Ramblin' Gamblin' Man. And I'll just stop and freeze, and I'll turn around and go, "Now that's somebody who's as old as I am." and it's such a great feeling that even decades later, you'll run into somebody and they'll go, "I remember that comedy bit you wrote. I remember that contest you had. I remember this." And for all the stimuli we've got going on around us all the time, when you feel like you impacted somebody's day because you played them a song or did a comedy bit that they loved, that to me is what radio should be all about. And I wish it was still like that.
Yeah. I remember. Well, what is it called when a station is changing formats and they play, like, sometimes it's up to a week, usually it's 3 days of chaos to just, what is that called? There's a term for that.
I call it flushing the toilet, but it may have a better term.
Yeah, there is an industry term. I forget what it is, but I remember when I first heard it, it was like the end of the 90s or something. I was enthralled. I was like, "Oh, this is awesome," because it had this chaotic, creative element to it that you don't usually hear. And I think that's what is missing in live, not having live radio, having programmed radio is.
So the moment came for you, I guess, in 2002, when that particular iteration of your radio career ended. And there was a need for you to transform your life into something else. Can you speak a little bit about whatever kind of vision you received or found, and how did you navigate to the next phase of your life?
Yeah, I didn't have too much of a vision. I just knew that my life really was a steaming pile of crap at the time, and I was exhausted. I was working 6-7 days a week, 50, 60 hours at the radio station, DJing weddings or corporate events virtually every weekend. I was exhausted. My first marriage was falling apart. And in a real short window of time, I just walked away from radio, went through a divorce, and destroyed any shred of financial stability I had, and wound up living at my dad's for a while. We had just built a recording studio in his basement. I had maxed out a $30,000 line of credit right before I quit my radio job and was in kind of a bad place, 2002 and 3. And on a really hot and humid day in August of 2003, I had $3 in my pocket, and I went and took out my frustrations and self-loathing on a bucket of golf balls at a driving range. And I went to the farthest tee box because I suck as a golfer. and I didn't want to dent anyone's vehicles. So I was up against the big safety fence and underneath this whole big row of steel towered power lines, and a thunderstorm came through. Ooh. And I was the only one who didn't run from the storm because I just hated. I'm like, screw it. So I'm barefoot in the wet grass, whacking the crap out of my bucket of golf balls and the buckets of two guys who ran from the storm and never came back.
Oh, nice.
And at one point, I even held the club up and I just said, "Go ahead, I dare you."
If it's my time, this is a good time.
My time. And I wish there was video of this because my clients would love this. And I basically swung and hit the crap out of those balls for almost an hour. And when I finished, I got to my car. And when I opened the door, the rain stopped and the sun came out. And I just started laughing. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
And the next day I was on a phone call with my then brand new life coach. And he asked, "How was your week?" And I told him that story. And I made it as funny, but really self-deprecating as possible because my self-talk used to be really bad. And he started laughing, which is something a coach shouldn't do when he's supposed to be helping your life when it sucks. And he asked, "Have you ever thought of being a motivational speaker or a stand-up comedian? I think you'd be really good at both." He didn't know the goals I had when I was 11 years old. Those were the two that were missing. Because my first book was just about to come out at that time. And 2
is
weeks
that
later,
bust out of your crate? Is that the first book?
No, the first one was actually a collection of DJ stories called Table 7, Your Centerpiece is on Fire, which did happen.
Oh, that's brilliant. All right.
2 weeks later, I was in my first comedy class, and a week after that, my first Toastmasters meeting. And I did 7 years of comedy, and I've been speaking ever since.
Were you ever in the Boston scene that was blowing up with comedy, stand-up comedy?
I did a number of gigs down in Boston, but I wasn't part of that upper echelon. I was an open micer and an opening act and a middle act in an emergency at best. And I never had the aspiration to be a full-on road comic or anything, but I traveled. Okay. I did comedy throughout New England and a couple times in New York City, where I did learn just because you wear a Red Sox jersey when you do shows in Boston, don't wear it to New York City.
Yeah, that's interesting because California is so big on the coast. Like we don't have that experience of boundaries so evident in a short span.
You really have to go to this giant stadium to get hassled as a Dodger fan and vice versa. But I'll admit the other day I saw a guy wearing an LA ball cap and I said to myself in my own mind, I'm like, dude, do you know where you are? Blah, blah, blah. Exactly. And then I said to myself, now, wait a minute, man. Peace, love, relax. It's just a ball. It's just a game. Right.
Peace, and love, relax. And the Dodgers suck.
Yeah. Well, if that were the case, they wouldn't be the Dodgers. But the point is, our judgment and competition with people is sometimes really misplaced. And we carry all this energy in our bodies. Yeah. All this negative energy in our bodies. It's not good for us. Nope. Right. And there's no need for it. Ultimately, what? Fuck the A's for moving out of Oakland. God damn it.
See, that's the thing. I think sports is a wonderful showcase for these darker emotions in a playful way, where like my brother's a Dodger fan and he and I have the time of our lives teasing each other about being a Giants fan or a Dodger fan. And I'm wondering, Steve, do you have a favorite joke of yours from your stand-up days that you could share with us?
And that's the funny thing is I never actually told jokes. I'm a storyteller by nature. So I had longer bits and a couple of song parodies that I wrote. I was a featured songwriter for a national radio network for a number of years as well. But it was never really quick bits. It was more stories and stuff like that. I mean, I had one that was called The Sex Referee, which basically it said, if the ladies aren't pleasing us, we don't say a word. But oh my gosh, if we're not doing something right, out pops a referee, blows a whistle, throws a yellow flag. And, there's a whole bit that went with that. But it was more longer stories.
Do you think that's also true beyond the bedroom with women? That there's the referee comes out around things like housework and stuff like that?
Well, I do pretty good with the housework and the cooking, so I never really felt any judgment there. And I still scrub the toilets. We got 3 bathrooms in this house, and I'm like, babe, you left me. Now I got to scrub all 3 bathrooms every other weekend. But I was never judged. Not in this relationship anyway.
Right.
But overall, I think men and women judge each other all the time. But you gotta, if you know each other's love language and you're willing to speak it fluently, I think you're less of a douche to the other person.
Yeah.
More often. I really do. And we not only knew each other's love language, we spoke it fluently, and we each played to our strengths. So we never really had those issues.
You know what? That just reminds me, there's a comedy bit that I saw recently. And one of the things he spoke about, he and his wife, he's sharing that they're going through a challenging time. And he came to her and apologized, like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. And she said, what do you mean? Like, you're sorry? I'm paraphrasing and butchering it. But in essence, her response to him is, we now have problems. We'll find our way through it. Mm-hmm. And it's a really beautiful thing to it's not your problem or you're the problem. It's we have a challenge. We'll see our way through it.
Yeah, it's a you, me, us, we thing. And it's, so many people go, hey, remember, relationships are 50-50. No, they're not. Yeah. Too many people play them as 50-50. We played 100-100 from day one. That was the best decision we ever made.
Yeah. All right. So just for those listening who don't know a bit of the story, like, you put down on your vision board of what you want, what it is, and suddenly a high school sweetheart out of the blue contacts you via Facebook?
Yeah. I for 2 years, I was, making vision boards, and I put pictures of, kind of like Mark was saying earlier, I believe it was Mark, or it might've been you, Greg, a couple walking hand in hand on the beach. I mean, I literally had that. Standing at the railing of a ship at sunset, cooking together in the kitchen and laughing. I had all those things on there. And in early June of 2007, I wrote down in my journal, I am ready to fall in love. And 10 days later, I got an email from someone named Tina. And I got a thundering herd of squirrels in my head, and each one has their own harmonica saying, hey, listen to this. So I get distracted. I almost deleted the email as junk. And the next day I looked back and realized it was a girl I'd gone to high school with, hadn't seen or spoken to in 21 years. And I go, oh my gosh, I remember Tina. Because I had a crush on her in high school, but never had the guts to ask her out. And 21 years later, she reached out to me, and, we traded a couple emails. She sent her phone number. I called. The first words out of her mouth in 21 years. It's about time you call. Oh my God, she's still sarcastic and funny and all of that. And a month later, she wouldn't even send me a picture. She had no social media footprint at all.
Wow. And
over the course of a month, and phone calls, texts, and emails, starting to get feelings for her again, having a ball, looking forward to talking with her every day. And in mid-July, she sent me a text. I was DJing at a wedding where I wasn't even supposed to be. Another DJ got sick last minute, and my agent sent me there. And she sent the text, can I tell you something if you promise not to freak out? And I texted back, sure. And she texted, here's how I really felt about you back in school. Here's how I felt when I saw your name online on Facebook. Here's how I felt when you answered my email. Here's how I felt when I heard your voice. Here's how I feel right now. And she texted 143. And I had to look it up. And it means I love you. 1 letter, 4 letters, 3 letters. And I texted her right back, I love you too. And I saw her a month later. She flew back to New Hampshire because her grandmother was having surgery. And I just fell in love with her all over again. She was more beautiful than ever, inside and out. And we wound up on a cruise, 2 of them, for free, because I was an area director for BNI here in New Hampshire at the time, and I was rewarded with 2 cruises. We posed for that photo. We cooked dinner at least 4 nights a week together in the kitchen. And we've walked hand in hand on beaches. I mean, every scenario I wanted to live out and enjoy, we created.
That's amazing. Losing someone like that, it's my chest feels heavy even thinking about it. Yeah. So, we get to a certain age and we don't realize that sometimes in the moment how important those moments can be. Yeah. And I also noticed that I believe in the power of infinite love, which means that, there's someone else now, Steve, when the time is right and you're ready and they're ready. And
On that note, just real quickly, my grandmother was 80 when the second love of her life came into her life, and they went camping together, had the time of their life. So where I currently live, the woman who owns the house, I keep encouraging her, you're never too old. And as Mark said, when the time is right, like my grandfather died, there was a period of grieving. She wasn't looking for anyone. But this gentleman entered when she was 80.
Now, you mentioned something about around the year 2003, your first life coach. Yeah. And I'm like, that's the earliest date I've heard of anything like a life coach. Like I've heard of mentorship, business mentors, psychologists, therapists, all kinds of different things. And, I'm making up the story, but I think it's true that you eventually became a coach yourself. So tell me a little bit about how you found a life coach in the early aughts.
Yeah, it wasn't the traditional way. I knew a woman who was in my BNI chapter, and she knew that I owned a recording studio that my dad and I built in the basement of his home. It was a very good recording studio. And she said, "Oh, my husband plays bass in a band and they're looking to record a demo. Could they maybe come to your studio?" And I said, "Sure." I had nothing going on. So I had them come out to the studio, and him and I were just talking in between takes. And he says, "Oh yeah, I just got certified as a life coach." I go, "Well, hey, guess what? My life sucks." So we literally traded recording time for his coaching. And that's how all of that happened. And he didn't remain a coach for very long. He went back to his regular career. He was a computer programmer, but it planted the seed that where I wanted to be a teacher of people. That was one of the things I wanted to be when I was 11. I'm not certified as a coach. I'm not a therapist. I'm not licensed for anything, but I've been coaching people literally ever since then. And there's a quote from Amy Porterfield that I love, and she's big on marketing and branding, digital programs and things like that. She said, all you need to be is 10% ahead of anybody else to be qualified to teach them something.
So how, like for me, there's an element of me that's like life coach. It's a sham. It's just people getting money for nothing. So from your
some do.
Well, okay, so that aside,
yeah,
what's your personal experience as a recipient of life coaching where you're like, this is a fact, my life X because of?
Yeah, well, we didn't work together that long, but just the question he asked me when he heard what I was going through and what I had done with the golf balls.
Right.
He just asked the right question of, have you ever thought of this? He saw something in me, like my friend Danny did, asking why I never got into radio. He saw something in me that I didn't. And I followed it because it was something I wanted to do. But A, I didn't have the guts to do it. And B, I didn't know how to do it.
That's what I'm wondering. So here's the
opportunity.
You're saying like, my life's a mess.
Yeah.
Things are fucked. This gentleman says, hey, have you thought of, what do you think was in you that was enough to spark your own inner fire to, all right, I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. He just heard me talking in a very funny way about a very tough time in my life, and that I didn't take it so seriously that it brought me even lower. And he saw an opportunity for me to share it and inspire other people. And in the coaching that I do, which I refer to myself, because coach, some people just roll their eyes. And one of my mentors challenged me. Throw me a phrase. What do you actually do? I said, I'm a visualization strategist. She was good. Write that down. Don't say coach ever again. Because what I do is just talk with people. I go, tell me where your life is right now. And we work in 8 categories, physical health, emotional well-being, relationships, core values, faith, connection, job, and money. Where's your life right now? And don't just say it sucks. Tell me. Scale of 1 to 10, or give me a couple of words for each. All right, where do you want to be a year from now? And then we just start to map out the actions they can take. And if I hear them say something, I'll ask them a question like my coach asked me.
Are you familiar with the telepathy tapes?
No.
All right. So that aside,
yeah,
how much does the environment, like Mark and I are both very much a part of, it's our personal responsibility, our moments of joy, to be joyful, to be, et cetera. Okay. Like if I put that responsibility on someone else, that I'm not making it because X or Y. How, in your experience, how much does the environment influence the outcome for an individual?
It's absolutely huge. And there's that saying that says, if you've got 5 friends of this caliber, whatever it might be, high, low, you're going to be number 6. And I don't recall exactly who said it, but if you've got 5 broke ass drunk friends at the bar, you're going to be number 6. If you hang out with 5 millionaires, you increase the likelihood that you're going to be number 6. Environment to me is huge. And there are people that have reached out to me and said, Steve, you are the most positive person I have any communication and contact with. Well, let's spend more time together then. That's the way I see it.
You need to get out more.
Well, you need to get away more. Yeah. And it goes back to the crabs in the bucket analogy. One crab tries to climb out of the bucket and the other ones grab it and pull it back in.
Right.
That sucks. I've had people in my life like that, and I've booted pretty much all of them out. My boundaries are really set firm and hard now.
I was just listening to your last podcast you did about boundaries and the energy you were sharing with you used to be addicted to those energy boosters. And
oh man, I had a 16-hour, 5-hour energy habit. I mean, my blood was literally either grape or pomegranate. It just depended on which carton I had bought most recently. But yeah, I was addicted to that stuff for 16 years, one a day. Not only did it cost me almost $1,000 a year, but it was wrecking my heart.
so you shared on that podcast that you wake up, you got the 5-second rule, the alarm goes off, you count down to 5, you put on something motivationally uplifting, et cetera, et cetera. What nutritionally have you found that you eat that starts your day off?
As soon as my workout is done, well, first, during my workout, I'll put a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar and a couple squirts of lemon juice in a tall cup of water. So that's good because it helps get you going and get your stomach going and digestion. Do my workout usually about 90 minutes, a little more, a little less. And then I'll have, I build a smoothie in our blender, baby spinach, celery, half of an apple, half an avocado, a banana, protein powder and some healthy stuff there and supplements and some ice. And that's the first thing that I consume after my workout every day. Basically, I'm drinking vegetables that I couldn't even spell 5 years ago, nor would I ever eat growing up. And it's just, it's habits over and over of just putting the healthy stuff in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your ears. Yeah. So I'll listen to podcasts, or usually what I start off with in the morning after the 5-second rule and the high five habit in my mirror, to which I say, I love you because you're a good dude. And then I'll give myself, get myself fired up for the day and just say, here's what I want to do today. And here's how I'm going to be. And then the food and the smoothie comes in, and I make healthy choices and just keep stacking them up throughout the day. I have not done a takeout meal since Tina passed. We used to have takeout date night every Friday. But I've not done that. I've made every meal ever since I got home, which was the day before Christmas. Finally, I got stuck in England for 2.5 weeks.
And do you have cheat days, or is that part of like, all right, today's a hot fudge sundae day?
No, I really don't. I don't have anything that I'll have and say, well, I can do extra time on the Peloton cycle tomorrow because I'm going to do this today. I've just really honed in. I mean, my dessert at night, my treat is a few tablespoons of fat-free plain Greek yogurt with granola in it. And I actually love it. So I don't even seek out the sweet treats anymore. My habits are so hardwired now. I'm down 40 pounds in the past 40 years. Got stuck in the low 220s. And then, during the 2.5 weeks in England, I lost 14 more pounds. It's what I call the London grief diet. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But I came home at the end of December with exactly the target weight that I had originally set as my goal for the end of the year. Now, it sucks the way it happened, but I hit the goal. And it's all been through good, healthy choices and exercise consistently.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's just celebrate that for a minute. And then I just want to encourage everybody who's either seeing this or listening to this. We're going to take the next 10 seconds and we're just going to go high five, I love you. All right. And so I'm inviting you all. Go ahead, do it. Just like right now.
High five. I love you, Greg. You're all right.
Congratulations to all of you who did that. And for those of you who didn't, go to the motivational firewood guy. He might have something to help you with. I know that was a bald-faced pitch, but
no worries.
Okay.
It's all because really my self-talk used to really suck. I would just tee myself up and destroy myself verbally, thinking that because people laughed, it was okay.
I have a question
And
for you.
I catch people on that now all the time and suggest to them there's a better way.
For me, where I'm at in my life, I find that the negative is easier than the positive. The positive is taking me effort. The negative I could do. With your practice, are you now in a place where the positive flows like your breath? You're like, yeah, not a big deal. Kind of like you were talking about your nutrition. Not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is anywhere I go, even if I'm on a podcast, I go back to a lesson I learned from observing one of my grandfathers. Just leave every situation a little better than you found it. You can't control other people. It's when I go to the grocery store, some people see an abandoned shopping cart and they start ranting and raving. Somebody's lazy or a piece of crap, da, da, da. Yet they walk right by it. I go actually look for them to bring them back to the corral or to give to somebody walking in the store. And I'll make them laugh while I'm doing that. So I just see this situation that other people complain about and I just flip it and intentionally create a positive. I just try to leave a plus sign trailing behind me wherever I go. And it's so easy right now to be negative. I mean, we're surrounded by anger porn for 20, 30 seconds at a time. There's stuff to be pissed off about no matter where you look on social media.
I'm really pissed off about everybody being so pissed off.
There you go. I hear people say that. I'm so mad. Everybody's so angry. That pisses me off. And I just sit there and laugh. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Love that.
Okay, sure.
The point is, what we think about, we bring about. And if we can change our mind, we can change the reality we're in.
Yeah.
And it's hard because we get habituated to this negative self-talk or this activation of cortisol and adrenaline from being all afraid and resistant. We're like, I gotta get up and do something about it, rawr, instead of coming from this place of, oh my God, my life, I'm so blessed to have woken up this morning. I have a clean place to sleep. I've got, healthy food, but shoot, I'm out of baby spinach. I better go to the grocery store. I don't know. I'm really just trying to make light of the whole idea, but the reality is there's a lot of suffering out there. People are suffering. And one of the amazing things, the through line that I get from your life, Steve, is musical DJ on the air. People are being able to lighten their load. Comedy, public speaking that's based on this idea of levitating people, giving them something, right? So there's this through line of your commitment to alleviating suffering. Yeah. And I'm wondering, what's your Buddhist name?
I honestly have no idea.
I'm just kidding. Your Buddhist name is
cool
Steve
if I
Hamlin.
had one.
All right, well, I'll give you one. You ready?
Yeah.
Owa Tagu Siam. Just say that over and over.
I've heard that one before.
I hope you have.
Yes.
This is just me emulating you. Like, you're already inspiring me to get the funk out.
Yeah.
Now, you talked about having a music studio and radio, and there's something that tells me you're a player of instruments as well. Is that correct?
I can play the drums, yes.
Great. And in your studio that you built, what did you do with the dilemma of analog tape versus digital?
I've been digital actually in both of my studios. It was early video audio production, digital stuff when I built my first studio around 2002, but I'm fully digital here.
Got it. So is that like Pro Tools? What do you use?
Something similar. It's Adobe Audition is a program that I've used since way back in 96 when it was called Cool Edit 96, and it was only 2 tracks, and it came on 3 or 4 gigantic floppy disks.
Got it.
But I've stayed with them and upgraded ever since. But I don't necessarily do music anymore. It's more just my videos, my audio, my podcasts, my Zoom presentations, and my keynotes that I do now. So it's smaller, but it's a lot easier, and I have more fun doing this.
So I also want to give I mentioned the book Bust Out of Your Crate, which I love, which is, strategies for people to be as happy as dogs. And then there's also 20 to Life, which is simple actions to break away from negativity around you. And then the book, Oh Yeah, which is 52 positive messages. Now, my dream was that the copy of Oh Yeah would be sitting right next to you, and you could open a page right now and give us one of those 52 messages. Is that dream going to be a reality?
Well, I can give you my favorite quote out of the book. The copy of the book is upstairs in my office, but that
works for me.
The first one, just when you think you have nothing left to offer the world, smile. That's the first one in the book.
Beautiful. Awesome. And what led you to write the books? Do you still have a dog?
We did. His name was Super Teddy. He was a Yorkie Pomeranian mix. He was a rescue from the streets of New Orleans, born to a stray mama dog, and was the only survivor of his litter. And somebody called an animal rescue. They rescued him, and he got fostered down there. When he was old enough, he got evacuated to New England, and my wife, Tina, saw an e-newsletter from a rescue organization. And she and her mom drove from northern Vermont, where they're living at the time, to southern Maine, dropped $695 to adopt him, and I immediately started pimping him out and making him famous. His first appearance was
great.
Yep. His first appearance was 3 quotes at the end of Oh Yeah, another quote book. And people kept saying, "Oh, Steve, I saw your book. I bought it. It's awesome. Super Teddy's quotes are my favorite. When's he going to write his own book?"
And how well do you do in the publishing arena? Like, how are these books doing well for you?
They did okay. I mean, when you self-publish, it's tough to sell a ton of copies, but you do your best. You make them add-ons. When you speak, you talk about them. People might buy a few here and there, but I never had the backing of anybody with a full-on marketing push for them. So, I mean, I sold a decent amount of copies of each, but they are what they are. I'm foremost the speaker. The author thing is just kind of a cool thing to have in the background. So.
Well, we'll be sure to put the page for where you can get those books on the show notes so that you guys can connect with that and really go deeper and get your own comedic informed vision from Steve and make the world a little bit better yourself.
Absolutely. I think we all have that responsibility. And wherever your life may be right now, and you mentioned earlier that it was like a phoenix rising from the ashes. One of my most requested keynote speech stories, it's called Some Days Your Phoenix Rides a Pogo Stick. Because you will come out of those ashes, and eventually life is going to gut punch you a little bit, knock you back in. And when you do, your tail feathers burn off and you got a smooth baby's butt for a while. But when they grow back fuller, stronger, and the colors are brighter from experience, and you get to fly higher the next time. So please understand that just because, we get successful or happy or content or whatever, as I've shared, life a few months ago just hit me with the biggest gut punch ever, right back into the ashes. So I'm regrowing my tail feathers now so I can fly even higher and help even more people.
Have you ever had an experience of someone you really felt close to and they just never got out of those ashes? They just, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And how do you, like we were talking earlier about environment and the influence of that. So how do you remain in a place of positivity and love, not abandon that individual and not get pulled down into the cesspool they insist on living in?
Yeah, I do my best to just have touch points with people like that. I'll grab my phone and I'll leave them a voicemail, or I'll go on Facebook Messenger and just either hit the video, which you can do 30 seconds, or just the audio, you can do 60. And I'll just share them. Hey, I was thinking about this today. Remember the time we did this? And I'll share my happiest memory of us. And I'm not trying to change them, but I'm just trying to jiggle them a little bit to remember that there's a lot of good stuff in there too. And maybe they're just not focusing on the stuff that's going to serve them best. What I get most often when I leave those messages is somebody reaching out saying, oh my gosh, how did you know I needed that today? And my most common answer is, well, I needed it, so I figured I'd share it with you.
Yeah. And that allows you also, it's like talking about boundaries. You were talking in this podcast episode I listened to, you no longer have people intimately in your life that are just taking without.
Yeah. There's absolutely some people, if I see their number on caller ID, I will not be answering at all. And sometimes people go, well, I have somebody like that too, but I'm the only one they trust. And I just say, no, you're the only one that still answers the phone. So why don't you respect yourself enough to just say, this is not a two-way street. This is a person who takes and disappears until they need something again. They bring no value to my life. Let them go. They'll go find somebody else. If you put up enough of a boundary, they'll go somebody else. They'll say that you're a jerk, but they'll go somewhere else.
Would you have advice for anyone who would have an individual like that could be a family member, or even sometimes people find themselves in marriages that their partner ended up being that person? And what would your advice be to lovingly, in a uplifting, positive manner, create a boundary?
Yeah. Do your best to honor yourself. That's the number one thing. Start there. Honor yourself by having potentially that very uncomfortable conversation. Hey, look, I don't like it when you speak to me that way. Hey, look, I don't like it when you treat me this way. Hey, look, I wouldn't talk to myself that way, so you can't talk to me that way anymore. And these conversations are tough. Believe me, I'm not a confrontational person. I've had some very ugly conversations over the years. And sometimes they've blown up into full-blown anger. And other times I actually brought somebody to lunch to tell him I didn't want to be around him anymore. And I certainly did not want to do presentations with him on stage anymore. And he actually held out his hand and said, thank you. I didn't realize I've got all this stuff going on in my private life. I didn't realize I was being so negative. But he shook my hand and he walked away, and he at least honored the fact that I did not want to be around him anymore. That was 14 years ago.
Wow.
And I haven't seen him since.
Have you had anyone who heard you and was able to shift, and the relationship actually did shift to a two-way street?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had people do that too, because again, they just kind of said, I didn't realize. I wish you'd said something earlier. I mean, they were good people. They just got themselves in a funky rut, and they let their little, they'd pop their toe into the septic tank every day and get their fill of negativity. But then of course that stink is on them the whole day, and they just keep walking around stinking up the joint. And that's the exact opposite of what I'm all about.
Yeah.
There's a thing here about actually being willing to have the difficult conversations more frequently so that it doesn't end up being a bomb. Yeah. And it can just be a little bit of sandpaper in the relationship. And we often avoid it because in our mind, it's just, this is going to be too hard or whatever. But there's a lot to be gained from learning how to speak your truth from a loving place that calls people in at the same time as creates a little bit of discomfort for both of you around it. And, listening well and speaking well, those are hallmarks I use in my own life as much as I can. And unfortunately, it doesn't keep the pogo stick away. Things happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to how my first marriage ended. Neither one of us was confrontational, and it simmered and it simmered and it simmered and it simmered for years. What could have been handled with simple, open, honest conversation and no judgment. Boy, when it blew up at the end, volcanoes don't come with a dimmer switch.
Yeah.
Once that lava started flowing, it all came out. Whether or not it was all deserved from both sides at the time, it all came out, and it was easier to just walk away. And I, for my half, I let it blow up and I just walked away, and slowly over the course of those early 2000s, put my life back together, and then enjoyed everything I've enjoyed over the past 20 years.
One thing that both of you just spoke of is that lava, it burns everything in its path. So if you can let a little bit of that energy out at a time, you don't lay waste in vast swaths of life.
Yeah. A little steam comes out. You don't have to go full blown Krakatoa or Vesuvius over everything. You could have a little steam, maybe a little ash now and then, but once you get to the lava stage, good luck.
Yeah. All right, Mark. So if we ever are in approaching lava, let me know, because I want to stay partnered with you.
Yeah, me too. And I'll just be honest, like one of the things I'm really bad at is allowing my righteous discomfort or frustration to come forth and when it's manageable. And so to anyone else who is a people pleaser or has those tendencies, I would encourage you to find a healthy way to speak to yourself about it and recognize that there's something that's not working for you in the relationship and then be willing to raise it in a way. And if you do that at a level that is an initiatory and before it gets to be a big fireball lava thing, and the other person gaslights and blows up and does all that, that's them, right? Doesn't mean you were wrong. Yeah. And that's my professional advice for you coming through on this moment. Steve, I'm getting new visions for myself just talking to you. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's coming up and somewhat, it's a little bit uncomfortable, right? So I want to ask this as a question. Is one of the things that you notice about the cultivation of new visions for yourself is that it includes some recognition of what wasn't working for you in the past and a willingness to then sort of delete that or throw that on the fire of the past and then make room for a new vision? Is that how it works for you?
Oh, 100%. And to re-echo what you just said, a lot of times people get uncomfortable with the new vision. It scares the crap out of them because it means they have to grow beyond the person they've been all this time who has not achieved it. You say, well, I want to be here, but yet I have the same habits that I've been doing for the past 20 years that haven't worked. I should probably do this, which is often uncomfortable. So if somebody tells me their goals and I say, does these scare or concern you at all? And they say no, then I'm scared and concerned that they haven't stretched themselves enough, or they haven't really said what they really want. They've just said what they think they can achieve with their current skill set and confidence level.
That's some wisdom.
That's powerful. Yeah. I'm uncomfortable.
And the reason I say that is because, I've got a little old chalkboard here in the studio. And when somebody asks me, what qualifies you to teach this? Blah, 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 blah. Some people are really douchebags about that. They just snap and they go, what qualifies you to do this? I have a simple message on the chalkboard. It just says, this guy lived it. And it has an arrow. And I put my head in front of the arrow and I take a selfie and I just send it to those people. Nice. Everything I share, everything I talk about, I've lived through. I literally created a career by rereading the notes of my old journals because I've been journaling for almost 35 years.
Wow.
Everything I
Pamela Anderson made a whole TV show about her journals.
Who did?
Did she?
Yeah.
Who did?
Pamela Anderson.
I really admire that woman. What I've witnessed the past 10 years is pretty incredible. Talk about someone who, there's a joke there because she didn't do a makeover. She actually removed the makeup.
Yeah. I give her credit. I hope she's happy because I'm sure all those years when she was, living the whole thing and trying to live up to that image and investing in altering her body. And sometimes people can't come back from that because they go way too far. I give her credit if she now, at late 50s or early 60s has actually found a way to be happy in her life, which I'm sure she wanted all those years.
Yeah, she seems very happy. The documentary that's out about her that her son did is very transparent, and she seems very happy.
Good. I hope so. I mean, gosh, that should be everybody's number one goal is to find out what happiness means in their own skin.
Yeah, that's it exactly. There's someone in my life who's very close and encouraging them, just take a moment and say, am I happy? And if you're not, do you want to be? And if so, it's kind of like what you and Mark are both saying, then what are you going to do to bring that inside you? Bring it up. I don't know.
Yeah. I thought we agreed not to talk about this on the air, Greg.
What, about me being happy?
No. I was trying to be funny just then, and as if it was me that was that person, but apparently, it wasn't a well-timed or well thought out.
Right over my head.
See, be careful. That has consequences.
I want to
Anyway.
respect everyone's time. Steve, I believe that Mark and I could spend another hour with you easily and just be filled with it. Unless, Mark, do you have anything else that you want to?
I think it's great. Like, Steve, how do people get a hold of you if they're interested in creating a greater vision for their life, or getting some of the material that the books we've talked about, or accessing you as a speaker? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, they can find my website at stevegamlinspeaker.com. We're actually at this very moment building a brand new site for everything. The programs, the books, everything is being overhauled. Or you can also find me on Facebook and LinkedIn. Just look up Steve Gamlin, Gamlin. That's where I spend most of my social media time, is Facebook and LinkedIn.
And what's your home phone number and address? No, I'm just kidding.
Social security number.
Oh, yeah, I know that by heart.
So we have a question that we ask all of our guests. Mm-hmm. So if you did your due diligence, this question is coming. If you didn't, no hard feelings. And we want to know. We really want the truth. Okay. Eminem or Foo Fighters?
Foo Fighters.
How come?
I'm more of a rocker than a rapper.
Yeah. I kind of knew that was the answer from listening to your podcast. You said classic rock.
Every day.
Yeah.
All day, every day.
Man,
I mean, I love a ton of different types of music, and I've got nothing against Eminem, but I'm just a rocker at heart.
Did you see the new documentary, Becoming Led Zeppelin?
I have not seen it yet. It was actually available at the movie theaters recently. I don't know if it still is. I hope to catch it there, but if I have to catch it on demand here at home, I'll just crank up the subwoofer and the surround sound.
Yeah. I went and saw it with a dear friend of Mark and mine, who I went to high school with. He's a brother.
Yep.
And the very first note, we both looked at each other in a movie theater. We were like it was cranked up. It's a great documentary. It is just.
It's the only time that the three remaining guys have actually approved a project like this. So that means it's got to be good, because Jimmy Page is all about the integrity of Zeppelin's legacy. So if he says it's cool, it's cool.
It is cool.
And it really left me feeling like there was about 2 more chapters that need to get done.
That's funny, because Mike is who I saw it with. He said they didn't even go into. They still have Stairway to Heaven to talk about.
Yeah.
I think that may be by design. At least I hope.
Well, it's called Becoming Led Zeppelin. So once they are Led Zeppelin, the movie's over.
Yeah. So the next one will be Being Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
And then the last one will be the Hindenburg.
Well done.
The
sir.
Zeppelin crashes December is when they made the announcement in 1980. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Steve. It's been really fun having you. And if there's anything you need or anything you want in the future, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to have you on again. And just person to person, human to human, thanks for all of the work that you do to help yourself and help others. We're here for you, brother.
I appreciate it. This was a blast. It was effortless, and it was a lot of fun. And I appreciate both you gentlemen for inviting me on. And anytime, I would love to kick around some more good energy.
Recording stopped.